We are at Fate and Destiny, and we're on page 63. So he says it's called Melancholy Reflections and Confessions. He says, let us ask a simple question. Have we not sinned against the covenant of fate, the covenant made with the camp people? Remember, the camp people was the people that came out of Egypt, and that's where we shared our fate together. It was what people were doing to us. So compared to destiny, where we are making our destiny. So have we not transgressed against our obligation to participate in the suffering of the people, to witness and feel its burdens, as the verse states, and he, Moses, witnessed their burdens. Let us be frank. During the terrible Holocaust, when European Jewry was being systematically exterminated in the ovens and crematoria, the American Jewish community did not rise to the challenge, did not act as Jews possessing a properly developed consciousness of our shared fate and shared suffering, as well as the obligation of shared action that follows therefrom, ought to have acted. We did not sufficiently empathize with the anguish of the people and did very little to save our afflicted brethren. Remember, that's the covenant of the camp. The covenant of the camp. That's what he's talking about. It is hard to know how much we might have accomplished had we tried harder. Personally, I think that we might have been able to save many. There is no doubt, however, that had we properly grieved over the afflictions of our brothers, had we raised our voices and forcefully demanded that Roosevelt issue a sharp protest warning backed by concrete actions, we could have substantially slowed the process of mass murder. By the way, this was given many years ago, 1956, I believe, is when we identified it. As you're going through it, if you change the name from Roosevelt to Obama and put it into modern day history, you're going to see it still would work. As you're going to see, a lot of the problems that he was dealing with have not changed at all, and actually have proven out his words beyond a shadow of a doubt. You'll see what I mean as we go through this. We were witnesses to the greatest and most terrible tragedy in our history, and we were silent. I do not wish to enter here into a discussion of details. This is a very sad and disturbing chapter in our history. But we all sinned by our silence in the face of murder of millions. Have we not been summoned before the divine judgment seat to answer for our terrible transgressions against a prohibition of you shall not stand idly by the blood of your fellow? Particularly when we stood idly by not just by the blood of our fellow, but the blood of our fellows in their millions. And when I say we, I mean all of us, including myself, included rabbis and laymen, Orthodox and freethinkers. That was his. You can imagine he's speaking to the graduate. I forget the. Wait, I'll tell you exactly. He was speaking at a public assembly on Israel Independence Day in the Yeshiva in 1956. So this is a public speech he's giving. People are not happy at this point. But his free thinkers were the people who, in Yiddish, would be the Freidenker. That's the non-religious. The entire spectrum of Jewish political organizations, as he quotes in the Torah, your heads, your tribes, your elders, your officers, even all the men of Israel, from the ewer of wood until the draw of your water. Do you know why we were so indifferent? Because our sense of peoplehood was flawed. We did not properly grasp the whole concept of shared fate and what it means to be a people. We lacked, as did Job, to begin with, the attribute of chesed, of kindness. It was because Job did not possess the sense of a shared historical circumstances and shared suffering that he did not know how to pray on behalf of his friends. He was concerned only for his own well-being and for that of his family. In us as well, the experience of a camp people, again, that's a fate, was absent. Therefore, we failed to offer up prayers on behalf of our brothers, both prayers of the heart and prayers of consisting of vigorous deeds of rescue. We shut up. We didn't talk. So he's really throwing the blame on American Jewry, including he's not putting himself out. He's putting himself as number one, but he's saying if we would have just thought and really understood that we were all one, we would have spoken up. He says divine providence is testing us once again via the crisis that has overtaken the land of Israel. Let it be clearly stated. The matter does not just affect the political future of the land of Israel. The designs of the Arabs are directed not just against the political sovereignty of the state of Israel, but against the very existence of the Yeshuv, the settlement, in the land of Israel. They wish to destroy, heaven forbid, the entire community, both men and women, infant and suckling ox and sheep, as it says in Shmuel. At the Mizrahi Convention, that's the Mizrahi is a political party in Israel. So at the Mizrahi Convention, I cited the views expressed by my father and master, Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, that the proclamation, the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation, does not only translate into the communal exercise of waging obligatory war against a specific race, but includes as well the obligation to rise up as a community against any people or group that, filled with maniacal hatred, directs his enmity against Knesset Israel, the congregation of Israel. When a people emblazons on his banner, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may no more be in remembrance, it becomes thereby Amalek. Okay, very simply put. In the 1930s and 40s, the Nazis, with Hitler at their head, filled this role. They were the Amalekites, the standard bearers of insane hatred and enmity during the era just past. Today, 56. Their place has been taken over by the mobs of Nasser and the Mufti. If we are silent now as well, I know not the verdict that will be issued against us by the God of justice. Do not rely upon the quote-unquote liberal world's sense of equity. He could have written this today. Those same righteous liberals were around 15 years ago, and they looked with indifference upon the extermination of millions of people. They did not even lift a finger. If, heaven forbid, yet a second spectacle of blood were to take place before their very eyes, it is likely that they would not even lose a night's sleep over it. So don't count on the liberals out there either, he's telling us. Let us, like Job, learn to pray on behalf of our friends. Let us feel the pain of the Yeshuv. We must understand that the fate of the Yeshuv in the land of Israel is our fate as well. The Arabs have declared war not only against the state of Israel, but against all of Knesset Israel. They now are the leaders of the international anti-Semitic movement and are among its main financial supporters, lavishing vast sums upon it. Let us overcome this foolish and unworthy fear of quote-unquote dual loyalty that our enemies have managed to infect us with. First, we will never be able to acquit ourselves in the eyes of the anti-Semites. And whatever we will do will not satisfy them. So no matter how much we throw Israel under the bus or our religion away, they're never going to be satisfied. Second, as was stated above, this is not just a matter of ensuring the existence of the state, but involves coming to the rescue, the physical rescue of masses of Jews. Is it not our sacred obligation to come to their aid? Are we to be forbidden to demand that the Yeshuv be properly defended? We find ourselves confronted. Come on in. We find ourselves confronted with the very same type of test that confronted Job, the need to offer prayer on behalf of one's friends, prayer comprised of deeds and self-sacrifice. In our case, our friends are the entire Yeshiva in the land of Israel. We have to do but one thing: open the door when the beloved who is knocking, and immediately all the dangers will cease. So here he's telling Rav Soloveitchik is fate and destiny. You'll just listen at this point, okay? So what Rav Soloveitchik is telling us is that when it comes to Israel, and remember it's 56 when he's talking, so we have to we have to feel the pain of our brethren, even though we're in America. We have to still feel their pain. We have to stick up for Israel, because we don't have any friends. Bottom line, we're a camp out there, and he's going to really develop this right now. He says it's called the vision of the religious Shivat Zion movement: isolation and solitude. What attitude ought the religious Shivat Zion movement adopt vis-a-vis secular Zionism? It seems to me that political non-religious Zionism has committed one grave and fundamental error. An error based upon a false premise that secular Zionism introduced into the concept of the covenant in Egypt, namely the covenant of fate. Again, the covenant of fate, I'm saying this for you, is a covenant that Hashem forced us into. It's not one that we chose. Hashem forced us into it. And what we're working towards is destiny. That's when we have control. Fate was just a matter of we're passive. So, but he's saying that the secular Zionism forgot one important part of this. He said, with the establishment of the state of Israel, secular Zionism declares we have become a people like all peoples, and the nation of a people that dwells alone has lost its validity. That's what they wanted to argue. So that's according to him. The extremists in the movement even wish to undermine the idea of one common fate, the fate of the camp people, shared by the Jews in the diaspora and the Jews in the land of Israel. The camp people, again, if something happens to somebody in the camp that we're not there, we're going to feel that pain. So they wanted to wipe that out. The entire line of thought is not just a philosophical historical error, but also a practical mistake. Under the influence of this spirit of indiscriminate enmity, this doctrine of the sameness of all peoples, the representatives of the state of Israel have oftentimes displayed an embarrassing naivety, improperly evaluated particular circumstances and situations, and failed to discern the hidden intentions of certain individuals. As a result of their childlike innocence, they trust the promises of people who promptly proceed to betray us and are overly impressed by flattery and blandishments. It appears to me that on a number of occasions, the foreign policy of the state of Israel has manifested an absence of a sense of honor, of national pride, of caution, and of the fortitude to staunchly maintain one's own position. And he says all these mistakes flow from the initial error committed by secular Zionism, when it sought to erase the sense of isolation and perhaps even the phenomenon of shared suffering from the book of our history. And now he quotes again Shir Shirim, when he says, the voice of the beloved knocking ought to open the eyes of all of us, even the most avowed secularists among us. And he'll explain. He says, the state of Israel has not been able and will not be able to abrogate the force of the covenant, which says, and I will take you to me for people, and to liquidate the shared fate that is the source of the Jewish isolation. The state of Israel today is isolated in precisely the same manner that the Jewish people has been isolated during the thousands of years of his history. Again, nothing's changed. If anything, the isolation of the state today is even more striking than the isolation of the Jewish people in the past. For the present day isolation manifests itself in the international arena And he quotes, they hold crafty converse against your people and take counsel against your treasured ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. Against you do they make a covenant. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarites, Gavul and the Ammon and Amalek. Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre, Assyria is also joined with them. They have been an arm to the children of Lot, Selah. All from Psalms. King David, think about this. King David is writing that they're all trying to wipe us out. If you look at any one of the Arab websites, their mission is not to get a piece of land. Their mission is to destroy Jews wherever they see them. That's their mission. And that's what he's saying. Again, it's in 56. It's the most amazing thing. When I was reading this over, and I was saying, it would be like the time just stopped. Israel is the most right now, with our present president. What's it called?
Prime Minister?
No, the president. The president, elected officials, however you want to call the group that we have here. The elected officials. Israel is the most isolated country at this point. Its biggest ally, namely United States of America, is not its biggest ally anymore. The president has thrown us under the bus so many times, not even funny. And Israel is saying, what's going on? What are we doing? But it's unbelievable how close he is. Again, 56 is 2015. Nothing's changed. It's worsened. And so that's what I'm saying. His words are brought true because everybody wanted Israel. Let's be like everybody else. Let's have a good time with it. Well, that's it. And he's saying, no, we can't break that. It's an impossibility. We have a shared fate. We all have to care about that. And we're not supposed to be like the other nations. We're supposed to be different. That's the point. And for you to keep trying to stop that, it's just working against you. Okay?
Do you think they're doing that less than they did years ago? Do you think that they're starting to...
Say it again?
Do you think that's changed a little in the culture in Israel now? Than when it was first established? I mean, 10 years ago, do you think that culture is... I think
Which culture?
Like a separate identity. I think that they've become more connected to that idea now. Except for some
we don't see it so much. We still see they want to be like everybody else.
I see a lot like a mainstream that does feel very strong and like that we stand alone and like I think there is.
Well, they're getting to be.
I think they're getting.
I mean, you have to. Right now, it's reality.
It is, I feel like the culture a little bit has changed than it was then.
Okay, so I guess you have to thank Obama for that.
Less complacency.
Okay. Let's see what else he says. So he says, Communist Russia, together with the Catholic Vatican, Nehru, the disciple of Gandhi, together with the devout Catholic Franco, the British Foreign Office, together with, I hope I get this right, Chiang Kai-shek, all have banded together in the attempt to isolate the state of Israel, and they are assisted in their attempt by our enemies in other lands. This conspiracy has taken place after the establishment of the state, during a time when many of its leaders thought that the state had solved the Jewish problem and that it had brought Jewish isolation to an end and had introduced normalcy into our existence. When he's alluding, I believe he's alluding to Herzl. Herzl said to the nations, you think you have a Jewish problem? Great. So give us Israel. Those who want to go to Israel will go to Israel. Those who want to stay in your country are loyal to your country. There's no more, you don't have to wonder anymore. And that was one of his arguments to get Israel to be, to make Israel a Jewish state. So the concept was, well, if we all go to Israel, the Jewish problem has been solved. Okay, I think that's what he's referring to. So the premise that the state has weakened anti-Semitism is simply wrong. On the contrary, anti-Semitism has grown in strength and now as part of its war against us, makes use of false libels against the state of Israel. Again, you see this constantly. Israel is doing this, Israel is doing that. When was the last blood libel? The belief that we use blood to make matzah or something else. When was the last one?
In Russia, like?
Wrong. Last year.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. Every year it comes up. For the Arabs use it around Pesach.
Where
Around.
was it?
It was in the Arab countries.
Oh.
Okay. They had they put it out in it was all over the net that we use the blood to make hamantash.
But they didn't actually. Did they actually?
Kill anybody?
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem not.
Oh,
Okay.
it's, not so
It's still the
But they
fact
were-
that
they
the
could
fact
have
that it's
found
still
a
out
homicide,
there.
they might have, but-
The fact it's still out there is amazing. For who can see the outcome of this anti-Semitic hatred? The validity of the covenant in Egypt cannot be abrogated by human hands. We continue to be a nation scattered and dispersed, but at the same time bound up with one another. Our fate is the fate of the Yeshuv, and vice versa. The fate of the Yeshuv, the settlement, is our fate. Let no part of the Jewish people delude itself into vainly seeking to escape to the king's house more than all the other Jews. That's from the book of Esther. Each and every one of us is obliged to pray on behalf of his fellow. The Jews of America are forbidden to be quiet or to relax as long as the danger confronting the state of Israel persists. Nor can the inhabitants of the Holy Land prattle on about such nonsense as, quote-unquote, the new type of Jew being created there who has nothing in common with the diaspora Jew. All of us are obliged to attend to the voice of the beloved that knocks. However, the era of secular...
How is he applying that?
Say again?
How is he applying that quote from, we're all required to enter to the voice of the beloved that knocks? What does it mean?
But he keeps going back to that imagery in Song of Songs, okay, that the beloved is knocking at our door and we're not answering it. We're being, if you remember,
it's not.
Say it again.
It's not talking about God. It's talking
God
about
is the beloved. God is knocking at our door.
And how does that relate?
And if you remember the story, or the song, so the beloved, she's crying. The girl is crying for the beloved to come, waiting. Let me finish. Right, exactly. So that's what he's saying. He's saying the beloved is knocking, and we're not answering. We're getting lazy. I just washed my hair. I did this. I did that. I don't have time.
Why does it specifically relate in this context?
Because that's when it's called kol dofi. It was called kol dodi dofek. So that's what the whole thing was. But he's referring back to that to say constantly that all we have to do is Hashem is calling us. There's a moment in history that Hashem is calling us.
And we're not using. We're not using the opportunity.
Correct.
To Israel properly.
Correct.
Okay.
However, the era of secular Zionism is more serious than it's simply not understanding the true meaning of the covenant in Egypt, the covenant of a camp people, which takes the form of shared fate and involuntary isolation. Secular Zionism has sinned as well against the covenant at Sinai. This is when we become a people, the covenant made with the holy congregation nation, which finds its expression in the shared destiny of a sanctified existence. Only the religious Shiva Zion movement, with its traditional and authentic approach, has the capacity to rectify these distortions. If you were to ask me, what is the task of the state of Israel? I would answer, the mission of the state of Israel is neither the termination of the unique isolation of the Jewish people, nor the abrogation of its unique fate. It is in this it will not succeed, but the elevation of the camp people to the rank of a holy congregation nation and transformation of shared fate to shared destiny. That's what he's holding. We must remember, as we emphasized earlier, that fate expresses itself primarily in an existence of necessity, in the ability to escape from Judaism, in the compulsion to suffer as a Jew. However, this is not the Torah's goal, nor is it the ideal set forth by our worldview. Our sense of unity with Knesset Israel according to the authentic view of Judaism, must remain incomplete as long as it derives from the covenant of fate made with the camp people living an existence of compulsion, a covenant to which we are bound by external constraints. It can be complete only if it derives from the covenant made with the holy congregation nation from the covenant of shared destiny. An existence of fate cannot satisfy man. On the contrary, it only inflicts pain upon him. The sense of isolation is highly destructive. It can crush man, both body and spirit, can paralyze his faculties, can stop up the flowing well springs of personal creativity. In particular, this sense weighs heavily on man because isolation per se lacks meaning and purpose. The lonely, isolated sufferer wonders wherefore and why. The isolation which pursues man like a shadow dulls his powers, his sense of awareness. Not so is the existence of destiny based upon the covenant made at Mount Sinai. Through this covenant, the people, a concept signifying subjugation to the decree of an existence of necessity, participation in blind suffering, and the cessation of meaningless isolation, becomes transformed into a holy nation and attains the exalted rank of an ethical religious congregation. From the depths of the consciousness of destiny, a man can draw vigor and strength, creative powers, and the bliss of a renewed, free, and vibrant existence. Why? Why?
It has more meaning. It's about actualizing potential. Right?
Good. It's because we chose it.
He has purpose.
We're choosing it. When it's forced upon us, and we're doing it, we're people of fate, it's schwer zu sein a Yid. It's hard to be a Jew. It's just hard. Everything's against us. When we choose it, when we actively choose, we make that decision, we want to do this, that's when it's destiny. Also now, it's not a yoke on my back anymore. It's a joy. Ibdu Hashem b'simcha. Serve Hashem with joy. It's beautiful. Everything that's going to happen is fine, no problem. So I see it as my destiny to do this. I have a purpose.
But in a certain way, it's also, in a way, it's also actualizing something that's there, that just has to become to life. I'm saying it's
right.
Not only, you're not just making it happen, because that's the aspect of destiny also has an aspect of actualizing potential, not just making the thing happen.
Right.
It's there, but
good.
It's right.
Okay, good.
But there's a satisfaction.
Correct.
Right.
So let us review yet once again what was stated earlier. How do fate and destiny differ? In two ways. First, fate entails an existence of necessity. Destiny is a free-willed existence created by man himself as he chooses and charts his own path in life. Second, fate expresses itself in a bare teleological blank existence. Destiny possesses both significance and purpose. A shared fate is simply the inability to rebel against fate. It is a tragic, Jonah-like incapacity to flee from before God of the Hebrews. As it says in Jonah, but the Lord hurled a great wind into the sea so that the ship was like to be broken. He was forced into a situation. A shared destiny means the unconstrained ability of the will to strive toward a goal. It means the free decision to devote oneself to an ideal. It means yearning for God. Jonah, in the end, cast off the blind faith pursuing him and chose the exalted destiny of the God of Israel. I am a Hebrew. I fear the Lord, the God of heaven. To be sure, there is an element of separation present even in the experience of shared destiny. However, the separation entailed by destiny differs completely from that entailed by fate. It is not the negative feeling described in the prophetic vision of Bilam when he said, "Lo, it is a people that shall dwell alone," but rather a unique consciousness vouchsafed by Moshe in the last hours before his death to Knesset Israel, when he said, "In Israel dwells in security alone the fountain of Jacob." In truth, the separation is naught but the solitude of pure and holy, splendid, glorious existence. It is a solitude that finds its expression in the person's uniqueness, in his divine image, and in his existential I experience. It is the solitude of the soul that dwells in concealment in the depth of being. It is the solitude that is to be identified with the person's spirituality and individuality. It is a solitude that makes manifest man's dignity and freedom. It is a solitude of Moses, whose great spirit and exalted vision were beyond the people's comprehension. It is the solitude of Elijah and the rest of the prophets. It is the solitude concerning which Abraham spoke when he told his young man, "Abide, stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship." So all these, they're the good parts of being alone. While isolation involves harmful inferiority feelings deriving from self-negation, a person's solitude testifies to both his greatness and his sanctity. The greatness that is contained within his private domain, and the sanctity that permeates the inner recesses of his unique consciousness. Loneliness robs man of this tranquility. Solitude bestows upon him security, worth, and dignity. Security alone. So it all.
Are you differentiating in this between fate and destiny, or is this both of them are connected?
Say it again.
In this description that you're describing, you're differentiating destiny from fate, or you're differentiating destiny
Yes.
from fate?
Yes.
So fate serves a purpose, though, too, right? Or no?
Yeah, they both serve a purpose. What the purpose of fate is that we all have a shared past. So when something happens to you, I should feel that. We're all part of one body. Destiny is something else. But again,
You're talking about the past, the way you're saying?
well, if you have...
It's the past and how that projects for the future, but it's
Yeah.
not in your hands.
Right. I'm passive.
Right.
The fate, I'm passive in. Destiny, I'm active. So that's why his point. When is fate loneliness? That's you have no choice over it. You were fated for that, if you will. Okay. But once I choose,
It's not so lonely because you share it with others.
say again.
It's not so lonely in a way because you share it with others.
But right. But I'm just saying, if we only stay with the fate part of it, then we're lonely. Then because it's.
The word
Listen to what I'm saying.
lonely.
Hear what I'm saying first. I'm saying when is fate and it's passive, so then the fact that I'm removed from everybody, I feel lonely because I'm removed from everybody. When I choose...
You mean in the world, not from the Jewish nation.
Yeah. When I choose to be alone, solitude, then with my people, so then I'm not upset at that.
Having a sense of identity for yourself.
Correct. So Judaism has always believed, as we emphasized at the beginning of our remarks, that a person has the ability to take his fate into his hands and to mold it into destiny, into a life of freedom, meaning, and joy. That he has the power to transform isolation into solitude, a sense of inferiority into a feeling of worth. It is for this reason that Judaism has emphasized the importance of the principle of free will. It is for this reason that it has attached such great value to human reason, which enables man to liberate himself from subjugation to nature and rule over his environment and subject it to his will. The Jewish community is obliged to utilize its free will in all areas of life in general, but in particular on behalf of the welfare of the state of Israel. If secular Zionism should finally realize that the state of Israel cannot terminate the paradoxical fate of Jewish isolation, that to the contrary, the incomprehensible isolation of "and I will take you as for my people" has become even more pronounced in the international arena, then it must put to itself the ancient query of what is your namely they asked Jonah, what is your occupation, where do you come from, and what people are you from? This question will be asked of us one way or another. If we do not ask it ourselves, then the non-Jew will put it to us, and we must answer proudly, I fear the Lord, the God of heaven. Our historic obligation today is to raise ourselves from a people to a holy nation. He's saying it straight out. From the covenant of Egypt to the covenant at Sinai. From the existence, again, the covenant of Egypt is the passive one, to the covenant of Sinai, which was the active one. From an existence of necessity to an authentic way of life suffused with eternal, ethical, and religious values, from a camp to a congregation. The task confronting the religious Shivat Zion movement is to achieve that great union of the two covenants, Egypt and Sinai, fate and destiny, isolation and solitude. This task embraces utilizing our afflictions to improve ourselves and spinning a web of chesed, of kindness, that will bind together all of the parts of the people and blend them into one congregation, one nation in the land. It involves a readiness to pray for one's fellow and empathy with his joy and grief. As the end result of this self-improvement, we will achieve the holiness conferred by an existence of destiny and will ascend to the mountain of the Lord. Our one great goal unites us all. One exalted vision sets all of our hearts aflame. One Torah, the written Torah and the oral Torah, directs us all toward one unified end, the realization of the vision of solitude, the vision of a camp people that has ascended to the rank of a holy congregation nation, bound together its fate with its destiny, and proclaimed to the entire world in the words of our ancient father Abraham, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship it, and we will return to you. That's where he ends. It was a long speech that he gave. But that's where he ends, and again, he's saying we need both components. We can't just be the people of destiny without being the people of fate. We need to combine those two things, because our fate is what gave us the history, what we started us off, but we have to take ownership of that. And that, so instead of being lonely, we'll choose the solitude. We'll recognize that we're a nation, that we're God's special nation, and we have to do what God wants. And if we can just pull that together, then the nations will love us instead of hating us. And if we try to appease the nations, he said, it won't help. His proof is, it doesn't help. And that's been proven over and over. And like I said, if you just look at this last chapter, what we just read, and put in today's 2015 with how the world is seeing us today, his words are prophetic. His words are totally prophetic. It's unbelievable how much nothing has changed, and even worse than as he said it would happen. And I don't think he really wanted that to be, but nonetheless, that is what happened. Any questions? No?
This reminds me of your talk a few days ago, the congregation versus camp, was it?
Congregation camp, that's what he was saying last time.
Okay.
Right.